So what Digbee does is very simply, it takes these feasibility studies right from PEA and upwards. It separates it into three separate sections: geology, metallurgy, and engineering. And we objectively analyze through the expert network that we have, come up with a clear summary, risk score based on probability as well as consequence, and end up with a neat package where people can read this in plain language, whether or not you're a private investor or a private equity group, and you can come up with clarity to mitigate risk.
For millennia, ancient pharaohs prospered from unparalleled riches made possible by Egypt's resource-rich gold deposits. But despite this rich history, modern Egypt remains one of the most underdeveloped gold mining countries in the world, but that's all about to change. Aton Resources is leading the charge on the Egyptian mining revival. As the only public exploration company in Egypt, Aton Resources has first-mover advantage. Focused on their 100% owned Abu Marawat concession, Aton Resources is advancing several exploration targets, including the recent discovery of the legendary Lost Mountain of Gold at Rod Ruin. Learn more about this exciting drill program and other news at atonresources.com. Aton trades on the TSXV under the ticker symbol AAN and on the OTC under the ticker ANLBF. Thanks for tuning in to Mining Stock Education, and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Bill Powers, your host. Today I'm speaking with Jamie Strauss about an innovative new research platform he just launched named Digbee, which helps investors analyze and assess risks of developmental stage and early stage production projects. Jamie possesses 30 years experience within the financial sector. 20 of those 30 years have been focused on investing in the mining sector. He's raised in excess of $1 billion from funds all over the world. He's developed a strong reputation also as an active independent director on mining companies. With that being said, Jamie, welcome to Mining Stock Education.
Thank you very much, Bill.
Before we talk about Digbee, could you just elaborate a little bit more on your background as it relates to investing in mining companies?
Sure. I've been in the city for over 30 years in the UK and really got stuck into mining back in the late 90s. I set up my own small practice, and then having discovered the uranium boom back in 2003, when uranium was just $7 a pound, BMO came on to me and said, did I want to move across there? So I took the whole team. I sold the team to BMO, became managing director of UK equity products in the UK, and set up their UK operation before going alone again back in 2010. And primarily then really focusing on a number of different areas, raising money, putting a number of different projects into production, but also being a non-exec director or an independent director, principally on Altius Minerals, which you may know, in addition to Gold Standard Ventures, Extore, which got taken over by Yamana, and Bacanora Lithium, a developing lithium project in northern Mexico.
When you were overseeing mining investments with your firm, because Digbee focuses on those late-stage developmental plays, did your firm focus mostly on investing in feasibility study projects?
Yes, I think my background and my preference really is, I suppose, really was trying to find the money to put something into production with the simple aim of creating shareholder value and ultimately getting dividends. I really believe very strongly that the sector can do a lot better in terms of execution. 4 out of 5 mines coming in over budget simply isn't acceptable. And I always felt as though if you pick the right management and you pick the right mines in the right jurisdictions, you can get you can get a good result, which ultimately leads to profitable dividends coming to shareholders.
I like the late-stage development plays, as do many mining investors, because if you do it right, over the next few years, you can really see a great share price appreciation as that mine comes into production. But as you say, most of those projects usually cost more than they anticipate, and it takes longer than they anticipate. And honestly, as a retail investor, an avid resource investor who is a retail investor, sometimes it's hard to analyze the NI 43-101 or the feasibility studies. About a year ago, I was chatting and talking to a CEO of development company that has a huge resource in Australia, and that's at the pre-feasibility stage. I went through the presentation, and then I downloaded the 400-page PDF of their pre-feasibility study. And when I was speaking to this CEO, I said to him, I understood your presentation, but honestly, the 400-page PDF, it's above my head. It's above my pay grade. And he said, don't worry about it. He said, only 1% of investors that are even interested in my company can understand it. What does Digbee do for somebody like me when I want to understand these projects as part of my due diligence?
So you've just answered everything we do in one paragraph. You and I thinking exactly the same. And after 20 years of being involved in the mining industry, having been very lucky and very fortunate with my life in the mining industry, and having also had a lot of fun, it was obvious right from the start, but all the way up and through to now, is that these feasibility studies are being written at huge expense, huge amount of time, for very good reasons, but it is not being used. And that's a bit bizarre when this is one of the most complicated industries in the world, which is not binary in any sense of the word. And at the same time, it is odd because a new whole group of sophisticated investors have come in, now taking over 70% of all fundraisings, the private equity, the royalty and streaming guys, the strategics, the alternative lenders. All of them do due diligence to a fine degree. And they're paying a huge amount of money with all the major consultants. The major consultants, this is not their core business. This is their secondary business. They like to write the underlying reports. So what Digbee does is very simply, it takes these feasibility studies right from PEA and upwards. It separates it into three separate sections: geology, metallurgy, and engineering. And we objectively analyze through the expert network that we have. We objectively analyze these reports, come up with a clear summary, risk score based on probability as well as consequence, and end up with a neat package where people can read this in plain language, whether or not you're a private investor or a private equity group, and you can come up with clarity to mitigate risk and hopefully improve your investment thesis.
Would it be an accurate description to describe your research platform as like a clearinghouse, or if I could use the word, the Uber of feasibility study research?
I think there is some very close. This is a platform, and the platform, Uber's a platform, eBay's a platform. So to that extent, yes. But I think it's really important to differentiate what Digbee is trying to do. We're doing this from a common sense point of view. We're not reinventing the wheel. Marketplaces, platforms have been around for a long time. Expert networks have been around for a long time. What we're effectively doing is we're creating, or we're facilitating, the opportunity for accredited experts, metallurgists, engineers, and geologists initially, of which there are thousands, Bill. These guys are, there are 69,000 members of geological societies around the world. They're not all accredited. But we're facilitating the opportunity to bringing these people in from the cold to speak in plain language and to analyze and objectively give clear guidance or clear view on what is already a public document. So this is not in the gray area of inside information or anything. This is giving clarity to something in the public document, which in your own words said is complicated and virtually nobody's reading. But that's quite different from Uber, obviously, which is, to all intents and purposes, anybody can go and be a driver. Here, this is a very professional platform. You have to be accredited in order to be able to earn income.
How would the research reports that Digbee produces for clients, how would they be different from traditional research reports?
Very well. First of all, at the outset, this is not valuation research. So this is technical research. This is based on the technical complexities of geology, metallurgy, and engineering. These three topics, very few people understand all together. And in simplicity, we're not getting involved in valuation research at this stage. We're trying to understand, has this geology, what is being portrayed in the 43-101, A, is that fair? B, is there areas that you can improve? Looking both at the positives as well as the negatives. Not every geologist is going to be 100% right all the time, and being very clear on this technical analysis. So I don't know if that answers your question, but very different from the investment banking type research. In fact, it goes alongside investment banking research very well, because I think valuation research has a strong part to play in any investment decision. But without knowing the nuts and bolts of a project such as a mining project, it's very difficult to come to a conclusion with any certainty or clarity.
Would you agree that when it comes to mining investments, ultimately it comes down to geological risk? Do you agree with that statement?
I think that's one of the main parts, but not on its own. I mean, I'm the director of a couple of companies at the moment where metallurgy is absolutely critical, and we've got a pretty good idea of the geology, but it's the metallurgy which becomes so much more important. Take lithium, for example. The metallurgy of a lithium project is much more important than the geology in many cases. Not in all cases. There are a number of different types of lithium projects. Or even engineering. I read a report that we did recently as a trial run, which was an underground mine, and a number of key risk factors came out in this from the engineering side, and areas where you could improve your economics as a result, of doing things in a different way. So clearly everything has to have a good geology. Yes, I'd agree with that. But when it comes to the end decision as to what that net present value, internal rate, or even just the confidence of building a project, and the risk mitigation, engineering and metallurgy are really, really critical to bring in there as well.
You mentioned that your analysts will do reports regarding companies' projects that have a preliminary economic assessment. As you know, that can include inferred resources, and the standards for that are lower than a pre-feasibility study or a bankable feasibility study. So what are your thoughts on preliminary economic assessments as a useful tool for an investor?
Well, I kind of go back to the industry here. I think a PEA or a scoping study is really helpful as a snapshot for the management and also for investors to gather their thoughts as to where they are at that time in order then to take it on to the next step. I mean, let's be honest. Not every project in the world should become a highly profitable mining project with $1 billion or $500 million worth of investment. We need to have stage approach as to whether or not this is moving in the right direction. Not every PEA should necessarily be positive. Hopefully management can push out the ones before they spend too much money on completing a PEA. But in some cases, it only comes out in the wash. And I think, therefore, a PEA is a really good way for people to take stock of where they are before they go on to the next level.
Digbee, does Digbee focus on all commodities that are mined, or just more of the popular commodities?
All commodities that are mined. Although there is no restriction on any of them, it depends on how big and how much scope there is within the expert community. But if you take something difficult like, say, diamonds, there will be a limited number of geologists or available for the diamond fields. Excuse me. But that doesn't stop it. An expert network effectively is what it is. You should be able to get hundreds or thousands of people interested in doing this work with lots of people with different specialities, and all of them can add value in many different ways. So no, this is very much open to all the commodities, initially in the hard rock world.
And what would be the cost of a Digbee report?
So the average cost of a Digbee report is going to be about $2,500. It will be based on a dynamic pricing model, principally based on experience as an expert. So you have to be accredited, which typically takes 5 years, and we have clear guidelines for that. Accredited in their own profession, Bill. This is not us imposing new rules. We're just adopting the industry as it is. So it tends to be 5 years for accreditation. So you'll get a Digbee badge at 1 year, at year 5, and then be approved to write. And that will take you up to year 10, where you then get 2 badges, and at year 20 you get 3 badges. So a 2-badge expert will typically charge $2,500 a report. And then obviously higher as you go into the 3-badge and lower as you go down.
And the independent analyst would get a portion of the money that you charge for the report, I would assume?
Correct. They get 50%.
Okay. I'm looking at your website here, thedigbee.com. That's THEDIGBEE.com. Can you talk to us about this website? What can investors and interested parties find right now, and what do you have upcoming on the site?
Yeah, thanks for that, Bill. That's really exciting. So what we've talked about so far is the goal and where we're trying to get to, and which will launch in November of this year. What we've launched in the last couple of weeks is on thedigbee.com is a completely free database available to anybody in the world. All they have to do is sign up. If they are an expert, then there's a little bit of a different sign-up process than an ordinary member. And that's just so that we can get their background and their criteria and their CV, so to speak, so that when we launch in November, we can make sure that we send them the right sort of work to do. But by and large, what this database is it covers 3,700 economic studies or feasibility studies from PEA upwards since 2003, globally, and on what I think is a really quite attractive map. It covers about 65 data points, the typical common data points you would expect on each one, and it covers all, and those 3,700 focus on 1,700 projects in the world. Most projects have more than one study on them. And as I say, it's completely free. You can have watch lists. You can get industry news feeds, and we'll be updating the search criteria over the course of the next 6 to 12 months. Every single project is bucketed into a type of geology and a type of processing. It's really novel. That it's almost bizarre, Bill, that nobody had done this before. Into such a, I think people put these lists together, but not to such an extent with 70 data points for each one. So you'll be able to compare and contrast different projects quite easily. It's really neat.
I'm looking here. There's a contact page on thedigbee.com. If a listener has a question for you, would the best thing to do submit it through the contact page here?
Absolutely. Just feel free. Or I have a LinkedIn page if anybody wants to come through. Yeah, the best way to do is just press contact us, and it will come straight through to us. So I'll happily answer.
Excellent. Well, Jamie, I appreciate your time today. Thanks for the overview, and I look forward to catching up with you at some conference in the future.
I look forward to it too, Bill. Thank you very much indeed.
Orin Resources is a junior exploration company with the appetite of a major, focused on finding the next globally significant discovery to create enormous potential upside for shareholders. It's one of the most aggressive exploration companies pursuing high-grade, scalable gold and copper deposits, and has a premier 7-project portfolio, including its 2 flagships, Committee Bay in the Arctic and Sombrero in Peru. With Orin's unparalleled technical team and highly experienced management with a history of success in advancing and monetizing exploration assets, Orin has been called one of the best in the junior exploration sector. Orin trades on the TSX and NYSE under the ticker AUG. To learn more, go to aurinresources.com. That's AURYN resources.com. Thank you for listening to this Mining Stock Education podcast. Please subscribe and share with like-minded investors. Visit us on the web at MiningStockEducation.com for more resources on precious metals and natural resource investing. At our website, you can also sign up for our free newsletter for interview transcripts, stock picks, and more.